They had already decided who I was before I ever spoke a word. That was the first thing I felt when I stepped into the courtroom. Not fear. Not nerves. Judgment. Heavy, silent judgment hangs in the air like smoke. Some people looked up when I entered. Their eyes lingered a second too long, then drifted away with the confidence of strangers who believed they understood the whole story from a single glance. A woman alone. No lawyer. No one was beside her. No expensive suit. No stack of assistants. No powerful family backing her. To them, I was already finished. My father made sure everyone heard it. She couldn't even afford an attorney, he said, leaning back in his chair with a smile sharp enough to cut skin. That should tell you everything. A few people laughed quietly. Not openly cruel laughter. Worse than that. The kind people use when they want to wound you politely. I didn't answer him. Because I had learned something a long time ago. When people underestimate you, silence can be a gift. And before that morning was over, every person in that room would understand exactly why. The courtroom smelled of polished wood, old paper, and consequences. I stood near the defense table with my hands lightly folded in front of me. Calm. Upright. Still. Across the room, my family looked exactly as they always had whenever there was something to gain. Perfect. My father sat in the center in a tailored navy suit, relaxed in the effortless way of a man who had spent decades believing rules existed for other people. My mother sat beside him, pearls at her neck, posture straight, lips pressed into a narrow line. Most people would have mistaken it for dignity. I knew better. That expression meant satisfaction. To their right, my younger brother leaned back carelessly, one leg crossed over the other. He glanced at me once, then looked away as though I were a small inconvenience delaying his afternoon. Their attorney stood beside them flipping through a thick binder full of color-coded tabs and highlighted notes. Prepared. Polished. Expensive. Everything I was expected not to be. I looked down at the folder in my hands. Thin. Simple. Every page exactly where it needed to be. People often confuse quiet with empty. That mistake had built entire empires. And destroyed many of them too. There's still time to walk away, my father said, lowering his voice enough to sound generous. You don't need to embarrass yourself. I turned and met his eyes. The same eyes that had looked through me for most of my life. I'm not embarrassed, I said. My mother gave a small dismissive breath. Of course you aren't. My brother smirked. Their attorney leaned toward my father and said softly, though not softly enough, we'll keep this straightforward. Given her situation, I don't expect complications. I noticed the tiny pause before the word situation. People reveal themselves in the words they choose when they think they are being careful. I almost smiled. Almost. Then the bailiff called, all rise. The room stood. The judge entered. Everything changed. Case 47 to 218, the clerk announced. Petition regarding estate distribution and contested ownership. Ownership. Such a neat word for something so ugly. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked over the file. Then he glanced toward my family. Then toward me. His eyes rested on me a fraction longer. Interesting. Counsel, he said. Their attorney rose smoothly. Your Honor, this is a simple matter. My clients seek clarification regarding property that was never intended to remain under the claim of the defendant. He gestured toward me without looking. The defendant has chosen to appear without legal representation, which may limit efficiency, but we trust the facts are clear. A few heads nodded in the gallery. He continued with practiced precision. Dates. Transfers. Responsibilities. Years of maintenance. My absence. My silence. My supposed disinterest. Every sentence is polished enough to sound true. If you ignored what had been carefully left out. I listened without interruption. No expression. No reaction. Every omission I noted. Every assumption I stored. Because assumptions are where cases break. And pride usually hands you the hammer. At last, the attorney concluded. Given the absence of any substantial counterargument, we trust the court can resolve this matter promptly. There it was again. Absence. They loved that word. As if silence were proof. The judge turned to me. You may respond. My father leaned back, already victorious. My mother adjusted her bracelet. My brother checked his watch. I closed my folder. The small sound of paper touching paper drew my father's eyes back to me. For the first time that day, he didn't look amused. He looked curious. Good. I stepped forward. Thank you, Your Honor. And the room went still. I didn't begin with anger. I didn't attack their claims. I didn't rush. Instead, I let a brief silence settle. The kind that makes people listen. My name is Emily Carter, I said. And I'll be representing myself today. No reaction from my family. They thought that was a weakness. The judge nodded. Proceed, Miss Carter. This is not simply a dispute over property, I said calmly. It is a dispute over exclusion, intent, and whether silence can be manufactured and then used as evidence. Their attorney shifted. He hadn't expected structure. My father exhaled impatiently. I continued. My family argues that when I left home at 19, I surrendered any future interest in jointly held family property. That is correct, their attorney said quickly. I looked at him. Voluntarily. I asked. Yes. I nodded once. Interesting word. The judge leaned forward slightly. Clarify. I did. At 19, I was given two options. Stay under conditions that controlled my choices, my movements, and my future, or leave with nothing. My mother stiffened. That is not coercion, the attorney snapped. Perhaps not legally, I said. But context matters. The judge made a note. Small movement. Important movement. I was 19 when I left. No screaming. No shattered dishes. No dramatic farewell. Just truth spoken quietly enough to be ignored. I'm joining the military, I told my father. He did not lower his newspaper. That's what people do when they have no options. It's what I'm choosing, I said. He turned the page. My mother watched me pack in silence. My brother laughed from the doorway. Have fun taking orders. I left with 2 duffel bags, $200, and no one asking me to stay. Some goodbyes are spoken. Others are proven. Back in court, I said, for 7 years, I received no communication regarding this property. No request for consent. No notice of transfer. No inquiry. No legal update. The judge's pen stopped. 7 years. That mattered. That's because you made it clear you wanted nothing to do with us, my father burst out. The judge looked up sharply. Sir, you will remain silent. My father sat back. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. I returned only after being informed a sale was pending, I said. Their attorney straightened. Well, after any reasonable expectation of claim. Well, after I had been intentionally excluded from every decision, I replied. The room changed then. Subtly. Like ice beginning to crack. I removed one document from my folder. Not quickly. Timing matters. I'd like to address year 3, I said. The attorney frowned. Year 3 was not in his script. I was stationed overseas at the time, I continued. My communications were limited, but functional. I received official correspondence regularly. I placed the paper on the table. But I received nothing regarding this property. That proves nothing, the attorney said. Agreed, I said. He blinked. Agreement unsettles people who expect conflict. It proves nothing by itself, I continued. But it becomes relevant when paired with internal correspondence discussing ownership changes during that same period. The room went silent. Objection, he said quickly. Speculation. I have the correspondence, I replied. The objection died where it stood. The judge held out his hand. The clerk took the document to the bench. Paper moved softly. Power often sounds like paper. The judge read. Once quickly. Then again slower. Continue, he said. The correspondence discusses restructuring ownership and references the need to avoid unnecessary complications from absent parties. I let the phrase hang. Because it wasn't mine. It was theirs. My mother's fingers tightened around her bracelet. My father's face changed. Not anger. Calculation. Their attorneys stepped forward. Those are informal discussions. Of course, I said. But informal discussions reveal formal intent. The judge did not look up. He kept reading. Good. I placed a second document beside the first. This follow-up exchange occurs 6 months later. The clerk delivered it. The judge scanned the page. His pause this time was longer. In this message, I said, the language changes. It refers to finalizing decisions before any claims can be raised. No one moved. No one breathed loudly enough to hear. The attorney did not interrupt. He couldn't. Because the documents were speaking now. And documents never get emotional. Ms. Carter, the judge said, lifting his eyes, you are alleging a deliberate effort to proceed without notifying all parties with potential claims. Yes, Your Honor. And that includes you. Yes. Their attorney recovered enough to say, even so, the defendant remained silent. I met his gaze. Silence has consequences, he said. It does, I agreed. Then I tilted my head. But only when silence is a choice. The room sharpened. Explain, said the judge. Silence assumes awareness, I said. It assumes a person knew action was required and chose not to act. I let that settle. Lack of notice removes the opportunity entirely. The judge leaned back. He was listening differently now. Not politely. Seriously. You present this argument with unusual precision for someone without counsel, he said. There it was. The real question. I've had training, I said. Across the room, their attorney adjusted his cuffs. My father's fingers tapped once, then stopped. My brother leaned forward. What kind of training? The judge asked. I answered simply. Formal legal training through the United States military. Stillness. Then a shift. The kind that cannot be undone. Military, the judge repeated. Yes, Your Honor. He nodded slowly. That explains the structure. Their attorney tried one last recovery. Her background is irrelevant to ownership. It is relevant to how I assess her arguments, the judge said. Sharp. Final. The attorney fell silent. Are you currently serving? The judge asked me. Yes, Your Honor. Rank. Major. This time, the room reacted. Not loudly. A small intake of breath. A chair adjusted. My brother stared. My mother went pale. My father looked at me like he had never seen me before. JAG Corps? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. And there it was. Truth entering a room full of assumptions. The judge turned to opposing counsel. Were you aware that the unrepresented defendant is a commissioned officer trained in legal practice? The attorney swallowed. No, Your Honor. The judge tilted his head. Did you truly not know who she was? No answer came quickly enough. My father looked suddenly older. My mother's composure cracked. My brother stared at the table. I stood exactly where I had always stood. Still. This wasn't revenge. It was a correction. Proceed, Major Carter, the judge said. Not the defendant. Not Ms. Carter. Major. Titles don't create worth. But they expose blindness. I entered the exhibits into the record. Admitted. Their attorney pivoted desperately. Even if these communications are relevant, the property remained under operational control of my clients. Operational control. Interesting phrase. That implies defined authority, I said. Boundaries. Delegated powers. Yes, said the judge. Then I'd like to clarify those powers. I removed a third document. The original ownership agreement. Signed before I left home. The clerk delivered it. The judge read carefully. I heard my father sit up straighter. My mother clasped her hands tightly. My brother leaned back, but no longer comfortably. The agreement names all parties as equal owners, I said. No structural changes permitted without unanimous consent. The judge reread a clause. Slowly. Their attorneys stepped forward. These agreements are often interpreted flexibly. Flexibility, I said, does not erase requirement. He stopped. Nowhere left to go. I am a named party, I said quietly. That sentence weighed more than any raised voice could have. The judge turned to counsel. Were these terms considered in your argument? The attorney hesitated. We interpreted the management clause broadly. For maintenance, said the judge. Not restructuring. Silence. Yes, Your Honor. My father suddenly blurted, this is being twisted. Sir, the judge said without volume, you will not interrupt this court again. My father sat down slowly. His certainty was gone. I spoke one final time. The pattern is clear. Discussions initiated privately. Decisions advanced secretly. Finalization attempted before acknowledgement could be requested. I paused. That is not oversight. Another pause. It is exclusion. The word landed and stayed. The attorney tried one last angle. My clients invested in the property for years. Increased its value. That must be considered. I don't dispute their effort, I said. He looked confused by the agreement again. Effort matters. Then I held his gaze. But effort does not override consent. The judge nodded once. He already knew. When he spoke, every person in the room listened. The court finds that Major Carter was not properly notified of actions affecting jointly held ownership as required under the original agreement. My mother closed her eyes. The presented correspondence indicates awareness of that requirement and deliberate attempts to proceed without fulfilling it. My brother looked away. As such, actions taken toward restructuring and sale are procedurally invalid. My father did not move. The court rules in favor of the defendant. No gavel. No dramatic outburst. Just words. And the weight of them. People began gathering papers. Chairs shifted. The ordinary sounds of endings. Their attorney packed his binder without looking at anyone. My brother stood, then sat again. My mother stared ahead like someone trying to hold on to something already gone. My father finally looked at me. Not angrily. Not proudly. Not even sadly. He looked at me with recognition. Too late. Major Carter. I turned. The judge gave me a small nod. Clear presentation. Professional respect. Nothing more. But enough. Thank you, Your Honor. He moved on to the next case. That is how courts work. Something life-changing for one person becomes paperwork for everyone else. I gathered my documents carefully. Every page is back in order. Then I heard it. Emily. My name. From my father. I hadn't heard it spoken gently in years. I turned. He was standing. So was my mother. My brother remained seated, eyes on the floor. You didn't have to do this here, my father said quietly. I didn't choose the setting, I replied. You did. He exhaled. That's not what I meant. No, I said. Usually it isn't. My mother stepped forward. We didn't know about your career. You didn't ask. She looked down. My brother finally spoke. You could have told us. I could have, I said. Then I held his gaze. But it wouldn't have changed anything. Silence. Honest silence this time. Because we all knew it was true. This had never been about missing information. It had been about how they chose to see me. My father took one careful step closer. You made your point. I studied the man who had mistaken control for wisdom all his life. I didn't come here to make a point, I said. His brow tightened. I came because something that belonged to me was being taken without my knowledge. I let that truth stand on its own. That's all. My mother's voice softened. You could have come to us first. I almost smiled. Because some patterns never die easily. I did. She looked confused. When I left, I said, that was me telling all of you I would not stay where I was unseen. No one argued. No one could. The hallway outside the courtroom glowed with afternoon light. People passed by carrying coffee, files, phone calls, and ordinary lives. Inside that room, something old had finally ended. I looked at my family one last time. You were right about one thing, I said. My father frowned. What? I was on my own. A breath. You were wrong about what that meant. No one moved. No one spoke. I adjusted the folder in my hands. I don't need anything else from you. And I meant it. No rage. No bitterness. Just freedom. I turned and walked toward the door. Each step is steady. Unhurried. The sunlight stretched across the floor and softened everything behind me. I didn't look back. There was nothing left there that belonged to me. Outside, the air felt different. Not lighter. Wider. For years, I had carried the weight of being misunderstood, dismissed, and underestimated. But some burdens only exist because we keep trying to earn love from people determined not to give it. The moment I stopped carrying that, I became stronger than I had ever been. I stood at the courthouse steps and let the wind touch my face. Some victories are loud. Others arrive quietly. Not with applause. Not with revenge. But with the simple, Sacred feeling of standing in your own truth while the people who doubted you are forced to face theirs. I walked down those steps alone. And for the first time in my life, alone felt like power.